Hello and welcome to France 24's weekly music show. I'm Marjorie Hash. Are you ready to rock? Then let's begin. Today, we're looking into how well rock and metal are doing here in France. Despite benefiting from very little exposure in mainstream media, the genre has been soaring in terms of festivals, exhibitions and sales. To discuss this, I'm joined by Jamie Ryan, bass player with a French band Mass Hysteria, a metal band that formed in 1993 and rose to prominence in the turn of the 2000s when new metal and rap rock metal genre was the rage. Thank you for being with us, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, my first question has to be, how does a good Irish boy end up in a French metal band?
His dad gets transferred here, he grows up here and he starts playing a guitar, and then eventually at some point he just randomly, perchance, ends up in one of the biggest French metal bands.
And so how did you meet them initially?
I knew, so Jan, the guitar player, and Vincent, the old bass player, I knew them from an old band I had called Admiral's Arms, and they came to a show once, and that's where I met them. And then a couple of years down the road, Vincent left the band and they were looking for a replacement, and Jan called me. He said, I didn't think of you originally because I know you play guitar. Would you like to play bass? And I said, are you asking me to basically be a professional musician? He said, yeah. I said, I'd be mad to say no.
Yes.
So I said yes.
And that's how it all began.
That's how it all began.
And so growing up as a bi-national, so to speak, or biculturally, how did you view French rock compared to, say, American, US, UK metal? I
was kind of reluctant to get into it originally because I was like, well, I have all the English ones that I understand so much better. And then French bands came and the whole new metal scene exploded in France, which was very surprising because nothing had of that stature or just the amount of bands coming out had happened in France. I mean, in the 80s there was Trust, there was Tank, there was a few big bands, but nothing that big. And then Playmo, Mass Hysteria, Watcha, they all exploded on the scene, and then I started getting into French bands, and then I started championing French bands over everybody else. So I completely changed my attitude towards it, and then I ended up in one of them. So.
Well, how about we check out one of the latest videos by Mass Hysteria? One of Mass Hysteria's live shows there in front of 60,000 people, no less. That must have been quite something. Now, you're currently on tour with the 2023 double album, I was wondering, how's that going?
It's going really well. We just got back from 3 shows this weekend. And as per usual, I mean, we're very surprised that from the last tour, we've noticed from the very get-go that there's something more again. Like, there's every tour I've done with the band, it's slightly better, slightly more, but this time there's even more. Like, the last show we played was La Rodia in Besançon, and that was sold out very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, oddly fast, how swiftly it got full, and the people were insane. And they were all very, very happy to see us, and obviously that they give you more, you give more, so it's always just exchange with everybody. But the amount of sold out shows we've had on this tour is way more than we've ever had.
Oh, excellent. And you've got more dates coming in December, and you've got the Zenith, which is a big venue in Paris at the end of January, I believe.
On the 31st.
Now, let's go back to the fact that nearly 2 months ago, France officially launched a new category of charts, the rock and metal one. France 24's Johan Baudin and Olivia Salazar-Winsper have this report on what it means for the genre.
furious drums and a distinctive guitar slide, the heavy metal hallmark of Gojira. The band is a giant of the scene, but it only came to most people's attention during the opening ceremony of the Summer Olympics, performing a blood-soaked revolutionary song. Metal might have seemed a quirky choice for the event, but it's been rising in popularity in France for years. So much so that now there's a specific chart for rock and metal to reflect its share of the French music industry.
The reason we created this chart was to give these artists in these genres more visibility, because we do get the feeling sometimes that the mainstream media don't really talk about the success of these styles.
While groups like Black Sabbath, Motorhead and Metallica helped forge the movement in the 1970s and 80s, in the early 2000s bands like Korn, Slipknot, System of a Down and Linkin Park won over a new generation of fans on both sides of the Atlantic. The new metal moment was not limited to international acts. There's a strong homegrown dimension to metal's popularity in France, with the success in recent years of bands like Ultra Vomit, Lofofora, Landmarks and Dagobah.
For example, this week, actually half of the artists in the top 10 of the rock and metal chart are French artists, with music that was made in France.
When it comes to catching those artists on stage, there's one unmissable annual meetup, Hellfest. After a timid start in 2002, it's now France's biggest music festival, with 240,000 tickets sold this year. Hellfest often sells out before the lineup is even announced. And as the festival's grown, the demographics shifted too. Once an insider event for ardent fans, they now welcome a broader audience, including plenty of curious newcomers.
We're here to have a good time. The rest of the year we have to put our heads down, but now we're here to party.
It's relaxed, fun and enjoyable.
The genre's shaking off some of the negative clichés of the past, although there are still some barriers to metal going fully mainstream.
There's the issue of the look, which some media outlets found a bit scary. Even though we all know it's just a superficial thing, it's a style that's associated with the genre. And it's often sung in English, and so, yeah, that maybe creates a language barrier for French audience, especially in the media. For example, on the radio, where you have broadcast quotas for French artists, and so metal doesn't necessarily fit into these little boxes.
But it looks like metal's breaking out of those boxes, no longer a subculture. Beyond specialist events like Hellfest, metal groups are flying the flag on other major stages. Iron Maiden, Scorpions and Judas Priest are all on the summer festival circuit in 2025 in France.
And if you're a fan of Gojira now, know that they have been nominated for a Grammy Award in the category Metal Performance of the Year for their stint at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics. The award ceremony will be taking place next February. Jamie, I've got a couple of questions. One, what do you think of the arrival of those French rock and metal charts?
It's good that there's finally some kind of recognition of it. It is a style, it is its thing, it is its world, and it needs to be cherished and put forward and show. And that statistic that half the bands were French really is something that proves that French people like the music, but they also like their bands, which is brilliant to see and hear.
Yeah, and it's just been announced that you're going to be playing at Belgium's Graspop Metal meeting this summer, which is a huge festival. There's another French band called Last Train who are also going to be playing. Do you think Gojira's rise to prominence with the Olympic opening ceremony has maybe opened minds more to French metal? Was there always a calling from, festivals abroad?
There was, I think, a bit, but Gojira definitely absolutely destroyed the gates and let it be known that France was a country of metal. Like, there's so many bands here and so many good bands, and a lot of them were appreciated by a few niche select people across the world. Didn't know them, but Gojira just made it so that everybody knew France was
part of the game,
and clearly on top of its game, because Gojira is now the biggest newer band to a certain point. I mean, they've been around for years, but they're the next Metallicas and all that. I mean, it's a French band. That is unheard of. So it's so amazing to have, and they really, really did put France on the map for it.
Any other countries in the world that have got a big metal scene that people aren't necessarily aware of?
I mean, there's loads of Japanese bands we don't ever hear because it's another market and they're very much in their market. There's bands all over the place, literally. I mean, it's a style that you will always find a band in a country, even the most. I mean, there's a load of African bands that are coming out now.
Mozambique, Angola.
Exactly, there's a huge scene there, and the pictures, we all see them. They're all biker metal guys, and they look great, and it's just so cool to see that they've got their own microcosm going on, and they're developing it, and it gets some international recognition.
Yeah. Finally, your last album, Tunas Part 1 and Part 2, came out in 2023. I'm sure fans of Mass Hysteria are wondering, when is the next record?
I mean, we're still touring till the end of 2025, so I mean, it'll be a while still, obviously. I mean, Tunas Part 2 is only a year old, so we still have some time to spend with it.
Oh, well.
I mean, we're always thinking of the future, but right now we're still on the tour.
The tour. Catch Mass Hysteria on tour. Jamie, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on Arts24 and to tell us a bit about the French metal scene. And remember to catch Mass Hysteria, as I said, across the winter and on tour. We're going to play out with Alcazar, a collective with members from all over the world who merge psych rock and Arabian grooves as well as Afrofuturistic beats. They're releasing a new album entitled Uncovered, in which they revisit Arab and Western hits alike. It is a fantastic record and I highly recommend you check it out. Alcazar will be playing Paris, London and Mannheim in Germany in December. He is their version of Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus.